Oh, what's cracking? Flex on them. Just got out of the gym, feeling good. I'm fortunate to have my own gym downstairs. I built it during the pandemic, so I box. I have a powerlifting setup, and my clients come to my house. So if ever you're in Sydney and you want a special invite to learn how to, just train, hit me up. A lot to talk about. June 19th, Wednesday afternoon here in Sydney, Australia. If you're coming from America, it's going to be Tuesday evening. I appreciate you tuning in with me. What we're going to do is cover a couple of the videos we've already posted today. We posted a potential matchup between Shakur Stevenson and Gervonta Davis. We talk about how they match up. It's interesting to talk about their sort of pros and cons, their strengths. We also went over today a sort of, I don't want to say viral video. I'm sure other people saw it. Basically, an exchange between Frank Martin and Gervonta Davis in the pocket in the 7th round. And it looked like to a lot of us that Tank got wobbled. His legs looked like he got rocked, but Frank didn't see it. Maybe he did see it. He didn't think he could take advantage of it. And I want to start there. I want to know what you guys think of this video. It's up on my page, so it's under the short section. But I've been asking everyone, does he look like he got rocked here? Right there. Right there. We'll see it again. Right there. And he wobbles. So only time will tell. I mean, I don't know. It kind of looked like he did, but some of the comments said he did, and then some people said he didn't. In a fight, you do get kind of clipped. There are moments where your equilibrium. Now, if that would have caught him here, you see it a lot. If you get clipped by the ear or above the head on this section, you kind of get, that's how you get like the stinky leg. That punch looked like it grazed here, the chin. So I couldn't see and I couldn't find another angle. If that grazed there and Tank wobbles, that means the neck, the vertebrae in the back snapped a bit. But he recovered quickly. We know Tank has a chin on him. We've seen him get clipped before and to no avail. And we know how that fight ended. And we know how all of his fights have ended. 30-0, 28 knockouts, Gervonta Davis. So Kenny Ellis, does that name ring a bell to anybody here? Kenny Ellis is the coach of Gervonta Davis, and he says today that because of the strong rumors in the air, phase 1, I'm up studying Lomachenko. If and when this fight happens, please let him come with his angles. And hopefully he will let Timothy Bradley work his corner so he can pick up Loma's shoes when Tank knocks him out of his socks. So this was a post I wrote about this morning. It's from Kenny Ellis, Tank's coach, saying that there's basically an offer on the table, and if both parties sign, that fight could take place somewhere in October or November. Now, I did a video yesterday breaking down both fighters and talking about their pros and cons. We know one of the cons, Loma's 36, Tank's 29. A lot of people wanted that fight to happen years ago. It hasn't. I want to see it take place. Today, we were talking about Shakur Stevenson. We know Shakur has a fight July 6th in Newark, New Jersey. It's a homecoming. He's fighting Artem Harutyan. Now, Harutyan's a guy who was undefeated, fought Frank Martin. Frank Martin beat him by decision, and now he's 12-1. And you got to think with how with Frank Martin's past with Shakur, we know that those contracts were signed. That fight fell through. Frank went on to make more money fighting Tank, and we know how Shakur felt about that. Shakur fights Edwin De Los Santos. A lot of people jumped on him for his performance. So you have to think going into July 6th, he's going to come out with a point to prove. I'm going to do a prediction video a little closer to the fight. You got to expect a guy like Shakur Stevenson at this stage of the game is going to impress people. You know, he's an Olympian. He's never lost. This is a guy who competes at everything. If you follow his career, he'll compete at ping pong. He's just as competitive as Terrence Crawford. This has to be eating at him, watching the same people who used to cheer for him question his ability. And that I did a post today about it, and it's shocking to me how many people don't know boxing who act like they do when they talk trash about Shakur. I'm not saying you have to hang out with him, and I'm not saying you have to cheer for him. But if you know boxing, you can't say he's garbage. Anybody who knows the sport, anyone who's ever laced the shoes up and understands space and timing and feints and how to punch and all that, everyone who understands that, this is why the pundits, the experts all say Shakur's the best in the world. They're not just saying that because Shakur's paying them money to say that. They're saying that because this kid is special. The ins and outs, the minutia, the small bits of the sport that the casuals don't understand, that kid is a savant at that stuff. Setting traps, setting feints, hitting, not getting hit. So you got to think going into this July 6th fight, hometown, Newark, New Jersey, Harutnian, he's going to go for the kill. I think we're going to see a very aggressive Shakur Stevenson, and I expect him to go out and try to finish Harutnian. And now, if that is the case, and we see the Loma fight doesn't get signed with Tank, that's the fight to make. You know, we talked about the 4 champions at 135. We have 2 Ukrainians and 2 Americans. You got Denis Berinchyk, who's kind of, you know, he's 36 years old. Not a lot of people were talking about him. Berinchyk, Loma has the IBF, Berinchyk WBO, Korov WBC, Tank WBA. Now we're all caught up. It's time to unify some of these belts, and I'm going to do my part on my channel as respectfully as I do my thing and continue to make content talking about unifying these belts, because as boxing fans, this is what we want. All right, so here's an announcement. The WBC Board of Governors voted in favor of the ruling to elevate interim champion Mario Barrios, guys, and new Mario Barrios to world champion after the WBC granted Bud Crawford champion in recess status and will compete in a final elimination bout in the super welterweight division to then decide in which category he will continue. So more fuckery by the WBC, but if anything, Mario Barrios, you're a world champion. And look, I mean, he's not going to complain about it. There's no interim status. He's the full world champion. It's interesting how the WBC is like, hey, bud, go to 154. See how you do that. See how you like it. See if you win. And if shit's too rough up there, you could come back and keep your belt. That's crazy to me. But look, I'm a Bud fan. Bud needs to vacate all those belts at 47. Stop holding those belts hostage. He would agree. He would agree this. He doesn't want to pay sanctioning fees. He knows he's not going back to 47. He's going to 54. There's a lot of fights. All of a sudden, guys, 54 is a pretty sweet division to be in. Imagine if you're Seb Fundora. Put yourself in Fundora's shoes 6 months ago before the Tim Tszyu fight, and the 154 division was kind of stale. You know what I mean? The buzz was all around 147 and 135, and then all of a sudden you get Tim Tszyu and Fundora, and you get Bud Crawford announcing that he's moving to 54, and then you get Errol Spence Jr. moving up, and all of a sudden 54 is the place to be. If you're Seb Fundora, you're getting big fights now. Rumor is he's getting that Errol Spence Jr. fight at Texas Stadium in October. That's a huge fight. That's like a generational wealth fight for the kid, and he does well there. You know, you got the winner of Majramov and Bud. What do you do with Tszyu? You got Virgil Ortiz. 154 is back, and I like where a lot of the potential matchups. We just have to see in 140. I mean, there's so many fights to make at 140. Devin Haney today announced that he's taking 2 years off. I mean, you know how it's tough being – imagine being a fighter undefeated, never lost, and then you lose, but kinda you got your ass beat. And in the, you know, public opinion, you even if that they said they're going to rule this week with Ryan Garcia's drug test penalty and his sanctions, but we saw the fight. Dev got beat up. Even if that O is still on his record, mentally he's going to take a while to recover from that. He said today he's taken 2 years off. He said he's going to travel and spend money. We'll see how much truth there is to that. If he does that, hopefully he vacates. But there's fights at 140 we want to see. What do you do with Gary? Hopefully we see Gary Antoine Russell back, even though he lost to Puello. You got Teofimo Lopez fighting Claggett coming up. And there's just a lot of good matchups to be made. And hopefully we start seeing the best guys fight the best guys. I posed a question today in our Boxing News Today group about George Kambosos Jr. and Liam Perro in terms of which one was the most impressive victory. When you rewind back time, you have a kid in George Kambosos Jr. goes to America, Madison Square Garden, and dethrones Teofimo Lopez and gets all the belts. And then you have a kid in Liam Perro, goes to Puerto Rico and just does the same thing. Granted, Subriel only had the IBF, but he fought a guy that nobody wanted to fight. What's the bigger win? I don't have the answer. It's a fun conversation to speak about, and it's a lot of people are commenting in the Facebook group about which one was the biggest victory. I'd like to know your opinion on that. Who you think was it George or was it Liam Pero in terms of Australian boxing? And it's kind of like we're still waiting. We're still waiting for Tim's big moment. It's kind of like he turns 30 this year. The cut was obviously unfortunate. That was supposed to be his coming out party. Seb's going to fight Errol. Crawford's fighting Madrimov. Zoo wants to fight. Who do you match him up with? 154. Is Virgil just going to wait for Tim? So these are a lot of the questions that we have to answer on that side of things. And then this is good to see. I don't know if you guys like Virgil. Virgil posted this today. A lot of people said they've never seen a picture of Virgil and Canelo. Some of the commenters were saying they wanted Virgil Ortiz to change camps and go train with Canelo. And when I challenged them on that, they were saying because Virgil isn't disciplined. And I'm like, Virgil is with, Garcia boxing. Why would he? I wouldn't expect him to change just for the sake of going to learn from Canelo. Canelo's not trying to raise a little brother. You know what I'm saying? So I found that odd. Maybe I'm missing something there. Ryan Garcia posted this today on his Instagram. He looks like a goddamn heavyweight. I did a post of what he looked like in May, what he looks like in June. That's freaking crazy. I didn't alter those goddamn photos either. Obviously, May is right after the Dev fight, maybe before the weigh. He's looking shredded. The one on the right today, go to his Instagram. He posted that, and he was flossing. It's next to a private jet. He said that he's not playing games anymore. Canelo Crawford, who wins pound for pound? Canelo versus Crawford, who wins? And who's pound for pound number one? Great question. Canelo Crawford, who wins, man? If they're fighting at 168, Canelo. I mean, I'm tired of that, right? I'm a Bud Crawford fan. For a while, this was a Bud Crawford channel. I started my boxing YouTube last May, so May 2023, documenting the Errol Spence Jr. fight camp with Bud Crawford. YouTube made me take all these videos down. What I'm saying is I went from 400 subscribers to like 7,000 in 2 months because of documenting EJ and Bud. My point is, Canelo is a fucking bigger. Boxing, there's weight classes for a reason, guys. If Bud Crawford thinks he's going to walk up to 54 and just wash Madrimov, he has another thing coming. Israel Madrimov is a goddamn gorilla. He's a dog. Follow him on social media. Understand the part of the world he comes from. The dude is he's belted in judo. He has a judo belt. He has a jiu-jitsu belt. I'm only saying that why that's relevant is because he's a fighter. You know what I'm saying? He's a fighter. He's a switch hitter, fights on both sides of the plate. Crawford's never fought a guy who's going to switch stances just like him. Madrimov will go ortho. He'll go southy, and he has power in both. So back to your question. Seeing Bud go from 135 his career to 140, 147, it's been masterful. But guys, think of how many years it's taken him to do it. He's done it properly. He's 36 years old. To just say that you could just go from 47 to 68 and fight a guy like Canelo, that just sounds crazy to me. And it's wild to think that in boxing forums, I'll get called a Bud hater when I say that. But I'm like, I'm a boxing fan. I'm a bigger Bud fan than I am Canelo fan, just to let you know. I'm a fan of what Canelo, how he goes about his business. I'm a fan of the professionalism. I'm a fan of his style. But in terms of what boxer I cheer for more, I'm going to cheer for Bud. Now, if Bud ever fought Canelo at 168, Canelo beats him. What are we talking about? It's a different thing. It's a different thing. Look how much Benavidez struggled at going up a weight class. Did you watch the fight last week? Thanks, MW. I appreciate you. If you watch, like, David Benavidez was supposed to go and smoke Vosdik, guys. Do we know that? We do know that. Vosdik's prime happened in 2017 when he beat my mind's going blank right now. The Canadian who's undefeated, who put him in a coma. Adonis Stevenson. So Vosdik's prime was in 2017. He beats Adonis Stevenson, and then he has a war with Artur Beterbiev, and then gets knocked down 3 times. His only loss up until the Benavidez loss. Gets knocked down 3 times, has a stroke, retires. So this version of Vosdik, he was supposed to get washed. As you guys say, he was supposed to get dog walked. Benavidez couldn't do nothing with him. But the first few rounds, Benavidez looked good. You know, his speed, his tempo, his pace. But it's a good fight to reference. It's a good fight to reference when we want to play these wild games and to think a guy could jump 3 weight classes and beat the best fighter in the world. You know what I'm saying? Benavidez was supposed to go up one weight class, 168 to 174. That is only 6 pounds, okay? Bud was supposed to go up 47 to 68. That is 21 pounds, okay? So look at what Dave struggled with Gvozdyk. What do you think would happen with Bud? I'm not saying Bud would get, it would be a brutal fight because with Bud's style, I would think it would look like Bud versus EJ. I do, but reversed. I think Canelo. People love to hate when somebody's great. You know what I'm saying? Like people love to hate when somebody's great. Canelo's only 2 losses. Floyd when he was 14. I mean he was 24. You know what I'm saying? Floyd what they fight at 152, something like that. I think Canelo had to fight Floyd at 152. Floyd was on the cusp of the end of his prime. Canelo was still a baby. And then Bivol. And look at Bivol. Bivol might go down. If you guys are tripping on Bivol, if you're looking at his 55% knockout to win ratio and you're saying he doesn't have power and you're looking at he only has a handful of fights, that dude, Dimitri Bivol, is an example of the evolution of the sport in terms of how far the athletes have evolved even since the 80s. This guy's strength and conditioning is on point. His nutrition is on point. We've only had strength and conditioning coaches in combat sports for a decade. So one of the things I do at my house, my gym's downstairs, if you've been tuning in since the beginning, I'm a strength and conditioning coach. I'm 42 years old. I help corporate Australians stay fit and get strong through things like powerlifting, high-intensity training, calisthenics. This is under the realm of S&C. I'm an S&C coach, okay? That was not a thing 10 years ago. Dimitri Bivol has all of this locked in. He doesn't drink. His Google what he eats. He lives the samurai lifestyle. My point is, that is the only other loss on Canelo's resume. A goddamn modern-day samurai in Dimitri Bivol, and in most people's eyes, the greatest guy to ever do it, Floyd. So when you think that all of a sudden, once again, Bud fans, I'm a Bud fan, I think that we would be ill-advised to think that our favorite fighters were unbeatable. You know what I mean? I don't think anybody is unbeatable. I think every fighter out there is beatable. And it's wild. I posed the question a week ago, right? Let me show you this post. I got receipts. I think that's what the young kids say, okay? I got receipts. I posed this question last week before the Subriel Matias and Liam Paro fight. I posed this question, and I do a video, and I say, if Liam Paro does this against Subriel, he wins. And the hate was simply because how dare I say that Paro could lose? How dare I say that he's beatable? I'm like, bitch, he lost before. He lost before, and he avenged that loss. So I do this post, right? And this was a week ago before the Paro fight. And I go, stats don't lie. Some of you were upset with my video yesterday about Paro having a chance at beating Matias this weekend. And blah, 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 blah. My point is, in boxing nowadays, guys, we can't even say out loud that our favorite fighters aren't invincible. Everybody could lose. And the minute we could understand that, the minute we could get past caressing this O record, because there's fighters out there on their social medias flossing and acting like they're the baddest dudes on the planet, but they're not fighting the baddest dudes. You know what I'm saying? Just because you might be undefeated does not mean you're the baddest dude on the planet. And I think with this oil money, what the Saudis will do, and me playing sort of like visionary, I think this is going to help put cracks in that foundation, because I think we're going to see big fights. Look what happened to Gary Antoine Russell this weekend, man. He's one of my favorite fighters. If I had I had that as a 50-50 fight between him and Alberto Puello. If you don't know about Alberto Puello, that dude is a monster at 140, and we saw it. I don't think Gary Antoine Russell, I'm going to call him Gar for the GAR for the sake of this because it's quicker. I don't think Gar expected his cardio output, his endurance, because he jumped on him early. Puello lost the first few rounds. Russell looked amazing. His tempo, his pace, his aggression. But somewhere along in the mid-rounds, Russell's punches weren't having the effect they were having on everyone. If you don't remember, both guys come in the fight undefeated. I think Puello was 22-0. We know Gar was 17-0 with 17 knockouts. And somewhere along the line, mid-rounds, those punches weren't having the effect, and you kind of saw Gary Antoine Russell with this looking, and I was like, oh, shit. how do I maneuver this? And it was still a close fight. It went to the decision. It was a split. It's not a robbery, but it could have gone either way. And that's an example of a really great fighter, a really good fighter who beats a lot of fighters. I put in 140 pounds, I put GAR in the top 10 in the world. You have to. I would match him up with any 140 pounder right now. He's that fucking good. Just because he lost to Alberto Puello does not mean he's washed. He just turned 28 years old. The kid in the kid in the amateurs, and I hate comparing amateur to pro. Look, in the amateurs, he beat Boots Ennis 2 or 3 times. That just goes to show you his caliber. And his brother, Gary Russell Jr., is a former world champion. I think Gary Russell Jr. has 2 losses, comes from a boxing family. It's a great example of not judging, not letting one loss define a career. All the great ones in the older era had losses. All the great, I mean, pick a fighter. Everyone had lost. So the idea to think, though, that back to my point about Bud and answering your question, going up to 68 and beating Canelo, I don't even think that's a conversation, guys. I don't think that as a logical argument, it can't be a logical. It can't be. Let's have that conversation after Bud fights August 3rd. See what he looks like against Majimov. Maybe take a fight at 60, because even 54 to 68 is 14 goddamn pounds. That's crazy. 47 to 68 is 21 pounds. If you guys are in America, go to the grocery store tonight. Look at the hamburger meat that they sell. In Australia, we have kilos. So the analogy has to work for American. Look at the hamburger meat they sell in 1 pound. And it's like my mom used to make meatloaf with it. That's how my mind works. Now imagine 21 of those. Boom, boom. 21 of those is how much weight Bud would have to gain to fight Canelo. So it's crazy. I don't think it's a conversation at this point. Feel like Canelo doesn't get enough credit for carrying his power to save against Kovalev. Yes, that Kovalev fight, mate, we just talked about 2 days ago on the channel. It was the 7-year anniversary of the Andre Ward versus Kovalev 2, when Kovalev got knocked out. And it was when Kovalev was Kovalev. And Andre Ward gets a lot. Andre Ward's one of the best American fighters. I think he's the last American world champion who won a gold medal and retired undefeated. Allegedly fought his whole career with a torn rotator cuff, literally fought one-handed. But that Kovalev fight, when Kovalev killed a guy, was undefeated, and Ward knocked him out with that just straight shot. And Kovalev was scary. Nobody wanted to fight him. When Canelo did that to Kovalev, that was the end of the road. And I think Kovalev got knocked out maybe 2 more times after that. But it's another example of in boxing and in combat sports, once that light goes off once you go out, it's easier to go out. And that's why we see with a lot of these young fighters, we want to see like their corners stepping in to avoid that. You know what I mean? Like Frank Martin went out. I mean, he wasn't unconscious. He wasn't twitching, but he was out, you know, and that was a good stoppage. You don't like to see fighters in the prime of their career go out like that because they're never the same guy. Our brain tells us, you've taken too many headshots, kid. We're going to just shut the whole body off. And like MMA, a good example of that is Chuck Liddell. Liddell used to, the Iceman, he was a knockout artist, used to starch everyone, had an iron chin, would stand in the pocket and just take shots. And then that Rashad, if you haven't seen the Rashad Evans knockout, it's one of the most brutal MMA knockouts in the history of fighting. Once that happened, you could just touch Chuck's chin and he'd go out. So it's not an example of how tough a guy is. It's our body's neurology telling us like, hey, you've taken too many headshots, you got to go. And speaking on that, the Russians are cool. And speaking of that, I got to go, guys. I appreciate you tuning in. This is Thursday the 19th. I do these lives every day. The channel is growing because of you. Start telling me what you want to talk about, man. I'm open to discussion. I love the feedback, support, whatever they say. What do the YouTubers say? Like, share, subscribe. Yovi! Yeah, that's my neighbor. I got to run. Yovi, you want to go to the market? I got to go to the shops. Stay up, player.